Well, hey everyone, good Tuesday night and welcome to Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story all live on our YouTube channel. It is Tuesday night, as I said, getting into I guess you could say the meat of the new bowling season. Guys and ladies who are maybe shaking off the rust are starting to hopefully pick up their pace, get back into mid-season form. I think that'll take a few more weeks for me, but we'll get there eventually. It always works out in the end. Hey, if you're interested in being on the show, talking bowling, reminiscing about days gone by or recent days, let me know. You can reach me on Facebook with a direct message. My name is Andrew Pfeffer. I'll put it up there so you know how to spell it. Or you can email me at bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com. There is also a little subscribe button on your lower right in this window. So please, if you're interested in bowling, want to hear some great stories, unique stories from bowlers really all across America and beyond, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. You'll get the inside scoop on when we have new videos and live streams coming up. So I have heard from many folks ahead of tonight's episode about what a great show this is going to be, and I have to agree with them, talking with our guest briefly. He is a USBC Hall of Famer. He is a Wisconsin State Bowling Hall of Famer. He is a Milwaukee Area Bowling Association Hall of Famer. He is Gigi. He is Gus Yannaras of Waukesha, Wisconsin, and he is live here with us tonight. Gus, how you doing this evening?
Doing great, Andrew. Thanks for having me tonight to kick off your season. Enjoy being with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here. Like I said, you are Gigi, and Hank Poznansky, who challenged you to appear on the show, called you Gigi. So I got to ask, what's that all about?
I'll deal with Hank later. Years ago, early in my career, when I went out on tour, this is early in the 80s. Actually, Steve Wunderlich is the one that started calling me Double G, in reference to Greek god. It got caught on so bad that Dick Weber, who was at that time our regional director of the Midwest, started calling me that. And it just went out into the States and, of course, took on a life of its own with the nickname. So that's where Double G originated.
That's a pretty cool nickname to have, if I do say so myself. I mean, some of us get called things that, we don't necessarily like. Has it grown on you over the years?
I don't know. I sort of get embarrassed about it, but I've been called worse.
Well, I did ask Hank about, what it's like, bowling with you and all that good stuff. And he had some good stuff to say. He said Gus is a great teammate. He's always positive when bowling, always encouraging you and willing to work with anybody on their game. He said he's also a fierce competitor. He is so intense and focused. He never lets you down after a bad shot. He's helped me out in the business with promoting my Hank Marino team tournament or promoting a league or just helping painting the walls. That takes a lot of time and I would say respect. And that's got to be a great relationship that you two have.
I'm very thankful with the relationship with Hank. He's been a good friend for years. I bowled with him on a couple teams. As we get on through this podcast, there was a time where he didn't really care for me too much, is when we stole Stephen Brinkman from him, from his team. We bowled with Mike Straney and Greeny. But the long run is he's been a great fan of me being a teammate of his, and just I'm a very exuberant player when I'm out on the lanes, Andrew. And sometimes I just, I get out of control with my exuberance, and this is just the way I'm built. I love the team aspect of bowling. I love to help. I think now on a tail end of my career, it's nice that I can help out others. So I enjoy doing that. And now, helping Chad Kloss at Bowlers Headquarters, I'm allowed to do that with the younger people coming in, and it's been a godsend for my talent in my career.
Yeah. You mentioned, the younger people coming in. Today happens to be National Sons Day. You could call it today or March 4th. There's kind of, differing opinions on that. And I want to talk about the young people because my 9-year-old is one of them. And he's been kind of debating over the last few weeks whether to bowl juniors or not. And last week, we got him to the lanes, to bowl a little bit and give it a shot and see if it's something he wanted to do all season. And he seemed to really enjoy it, He's got, pretty free arm swing. The ball's a little light, but, got the job done. And he was very excited about it, wanted to give me a high five and all that good stuff. That's the kind of thing that really, gets me excited because we all know the young people are either going to do it because they want to do it for the right reasons or they're not. And that's fine. But when you see, the excitement in, a junior bowler's face throwing the ball well for a time or anything like that, I guess, how is that for you?
It's still exciting. The bottom line is they have to enjoy it. If they're there with their parents because their parents forced them, that's not really, they're not going to be happy doing it. I mean, I've got 3 sons, and unfortunately, they had a bad taste in their mouth when I had them join their first league. It fell apart where it started with 8 teams of 3, and then it whittled down to 2 teams, and they got burnt out on it because they were playing the same team for 13 weeks. They wanted to quit. I wouldn't let them. I said, you made a commitment for 13 weeks, you're going to bowl. When we got done, they asked me, would I mind if they didn't bowl anymore? I said, not at all, but I was proud of them. At least they managed to go to 13 weeks and finish their commitment. And to me, that was more important is keeping your word.
Yeah.
But if the juniors and like your son, if he enjoys it, encourage him. I wouldn't be one of those fathers to constantly be on them all the time. You're doing this wrong. You're doing that. No, let them have fun right now. In years to come, if you just get them involved and they enjoy it, the camaraderie, meeting new kids, it'll take a life on its own. And then you'll know where you need to, step it up. I might want to get them another ball. I may want to get them a pair of decent shoes and see where it goes from there. And there's plenty of good coaching around, whether it's nationally or it's in the state level. A lot of good coaches here in Milwaukee. And there's different avenues you can go out to encourage them to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like you said, I hope he does. We'll see the commitment through to the end. And if it's something he wants to continue, great. And if not, that's great too.
He's a couple of free lessons for me if he decides to continue.
And see, those are much better than the lessons he'd get from his dad. So, so that'll work out too. So we need to talk about the Mount Rushmore of Wisconsin bowlers, according to you. Gus, you have some thoughts on this, and I'm very interested to hear who you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore. And if people aren't familiar, I'm sure most are, but Mount Rushmore would be the 4 best, kind of like, the real Mount Rushmore we've got right there. I happen to be in South Dakota over the summer. So,
well, thanks for the curveball. I thought that was a private conversation. Well, listen, Andrew, I want to state this early for everybody. This is my opinion only.
Yep.
And everybody has an opinion, and I'm sure maybe down the road I've missed somebody, but I look at criteria as to who would be the best from the state. Mm-hmm. You got to take into account your local tournaments, state tournaments, national tournaments, PBA events, if you were inclined to bowl those, international, if you had the opportunity. But thinking about this, I mean, the number one guy put on it is Lenny Borsch, undoubtedly. I think he's the best Wisconsin's ever showcased. I've seen him bowl from the early 80s. He's won in 4 different decades. and he's still competitive. He's lights out. I think longevity, he's probably number one. He's a USBC Hall of Famer. He's got, 3 national titles. He's got a couple senior titles on a PBA tour. But first and foremost, the guy's won gold medals. He's just done it for so long that it's hard not to put him up there. So he would be probably number one.
Okay.
See, again, here we go. Number 2 is another one of my teammates. I'm sorry to say, those 2 are front runners would be Dale Traber.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a guy that's done everything in Wisconsin. I mean, won bowling with the champs, and that was a long time running show, and it was tough to win that. The guy's got 52 PBA regional titles. Really? I mean, and he won them at a point where there were 120 of the best in the Midwest. He won recently, as of the last 10 years, he's won 2 USBC master tournaments in 3 years. One from the loser's bracket and one from the winner's bracket. I mean, that's tough to do, winning 2 out of in 3 years. And he's won everything, and he's well respected around here. But Dale would definitely be my second. My third, and this is probably, our era, would probably be Jeff Rickles. Jeff, same thing. I mean, the guy's got 30-some regionals, does wonder for the sport. He sponsors tournaments, the 11th frame in Iowa. He's got his finger on the pulse of bowling, whether it's professional or amateur level. The guy's a USBC Hall of Famer. He's done a lot, won everything in Madison there is and in the state. So those 3, definitely 1, 2, and 3. That's a murderer's row right there. The 4th is probably going to be the toughest because that could be filled by a number of people. We can go from Rich Wonders, who was in the early 80s. I mean, that guy was phenomenal. A USBC Hall of Famer. Mark McDowell won the Firestone. I mean, at a young age. Won everything in Wisconsin. There's Gary Dorosowski. Here's another guy. The guy's got 6 Eagles, USBC Hall of Famer, my teammate, one of my teammates. And he won an Eagle when he was like 23 years old. I mean, that's tough to do at that age. And to maintain that for years is phenomenal. Boy, I mean, you just look at all the great bowlers. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Dick Ritger. 20-time national PBA Hall of Famer, has done wonders as an ambassador for the sport, had his camp that probably birthed a lot of great bowlers throughout the years. So, yeah, I'd probably go with those 4. But there's a lot of bowlers waiting in the wings that, who knows, the next 10 or 15 years, could replace some of the guys on that. I mean, you look at guys like Chad Kloss and Dave Barris, Chad Moss. These guys are proven winners, and who knows what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years. Yeah. And the list goes on. I mean, Wisconsin's, we're embedded with bowling tradition in this state. And boy, I could sit here and probably write down another 15 names that everybody would be up and, like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Oh yeah, I remember what he did. But those 4 is probably the 4 guys I'd put up there. Listen, no hate mail to the FEF or to me. People, so just let's keep it at that. Everybody's entitled to one. That's mine.
Yeah, absolutely. And with all that great talent in Wisconsin and the technology we have now, why not just take that 4th head and make it like rotating with McDowell and Ritger?
You could do that. Right. No doubt.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got to get into your high five because Hank brought that up when he challenged you for this show. I talked to Brinkman about this, and he mentioned that when you struck or did something to fire up the team, and when he came off the approach to give a high five, he said he learned to put up his left hand. He said you would hit it so hard that if he put up his right hand, it would still be stinging when he put it in the ball, and eventually it would swell up due to the high fives. This is just, you're just trying to, liven things up, right?
Theft. I don't know my own strength sometimes. Told to me, and sometimes I'll slap guys on the butt. I don't realize how hard I hit them. My fives are just, can you say jacked up? I guess I get jacked up when I bowl, especially with the team. And it's such a team sport with momentum. And I've played team sports from football to softball to basketball. I've always been like that. In bowling, because of the high fives, I seem to maybe go overboard a little bit. And I don't mean to do it. And believe you me, these guys have, it's like I'm a wild stallion. Just let me go. Okay, that's him. Just be careful. Make sure. I mean, Dale Traber, for God's sakes, we ended up making a TV show in, I forgot what city it was, but I accidentally missed his high five and I hit him, Andrew, in the face, and his glasses went flying. I was like, it's so embarrassing. Luckily he wasn't hurt. He didn't have a gash or anything, but and Dale takes it with in stride. He just looks at me and just shakes his head. We were happy we made the TV show, so.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great story. We've got to, of course, get into your bowling story, back from when it all started. And we can't really get into that without this little nugget that I heard you say during your USBC Hall of Fame speech. This is 6 years ago. And you told a story, an amazing story at that, about how your parents ended up in the United States. I couldn't, it blew my mind when I heard it. Can you indulge us with that?
Well, yeah, both my parents are immigrants. They're from Greece. They came over very young, and there were no plane rides back then. I mean, they ended up taking a boat over, and they were on for at least, 13, 14 days coming over, to Ellis Island. And I had some relatives in Milwaukee that drove to New York and ended up picking them up. But they came here for a better life, and they wanted to give their children as much as they could. And I just got my upbringing was stern, but I had everything I needed. I mean, my parents were responsible for helping me out when I was out on tour, and they worked hard. I mean, both of my mom retired from Master Lock Corporation. My dad was a crane operator for 30 plus years, retired from Rexnord. So I know the money didn't come easy for them. So I wanted to make good. And, I had some success, not a lot per se in today's standards for the PBA, but knowing that the love and they backed me was everything to me. It was a family affair. My brothers helped me out. If it wasn't for my two older brothers keeping me out there financially, though I wasn't, a major title holder out on tour. I've got 2 regionals. I learned enough to become a very good amateur bowler, and it propelled me to latch on to teammates like Lenny and Gary and Dale. That was a springboard for 25 years of superior bowling with these guys. And the end result was me being inducted, which was a highlight of my career, and a day that will be burned in my memory forever.
Yeah. Did your folks lead you to bowling, or did you find your way to the sport some other way?
I found it some other way. When Bolero first opened in the early 60s, my uncle, my dad's brother, ended up taking me Moonlight Bowling. And that's where, the head pin, if you get a strike, you get 50 cents or $1 or whatever it was. And I didn't realize it at the time. And Blair had just opened up. It had to be, God, I was like 6 years old, 7 years old. And the pin came up and it was my turn. And I didn't know any better. Nobody told me. I just thought it was part of the dim lights and the music or whatever was going on. And I struck. And a couple people were starting to clap. And I just got enamored with that. I don't know. Maybe it was the ham in me. I just thought, was that cool? So they ended up coming on and got $1 or whatever it was. And my uncle had told my parents that I was excited about, because I would have stayed there all night and bowled, 10 games. So that Christmas, I ended up getting a Black Beauty bowling ball for Christmas. And we lived right by Petrov's, the original one on 53rd and Burleigh. So my mom signed me up, me and my brother Jim, for leagues there. And I was one of the juniors that had the shirt, and my mom would sew all the patches on, and I'd go there all proud and bowl. And from that, I took a liking to it, and it continued my whole life.
Yeah. Tell me about that junior program that you remember. I mean, did you have coaching? Was there a lot of competition?
Boy, you're dating it. I can't remember what I had for breakfast. Now you want me 40 years, 50 years. I don't remember a lot of coaching. I just remember like parents walking around. I never really got good coaching until, believe it or not, I started out on tour. And I worked with the best of, like, Tom Corris, who wrote Par Bowling, lived in Illinois, and being Greek himself, so he took me under his wing. I used to drive down there for lessons. The great Team USA coach, Freddie Borden, I worked out with him. So I started to learn early on in my career about the sport. The mental game I had to learn all on my own, which sometimes it was a benefit, sometimes it was not so much a benefit. Because being of Greek descent, I have a little hot blood sometimes, and sometimes I let my anger get the best of me. I'm older now, but back then, forget about it. It was, it got to me. But no, I don't remember that much coaching back in the day. It was just, the parents, watching to make sure we didn't stick our fingers in a ball return.
And hopefully nobody out there does, because that can't feel too good. I couldn't help but notice this picture that you have on your Instagram page of you, back in the day. You said in that caption you would have never thought that Hall of Fames were in your future. Do you remember what you envisioned your future in the sport being, in the early days?
Not so much a Hall of Fame, but getting better. I mean, wanting to learn and become better. And then when I got into my teens and I started following the sports, people like John Megna and, Don Ciardo, Don Gazzana, Dennis Yechter, Gil Yechter, Mike Strani. These were the guys I looked up to in my early teens. So I knew if I worked hard, I could be one of those guys. Never envisioning that would end up happening, but I just remember how cool it was to see those guys all dressed alike and, bowling and reading in the paper. I mean, back in the day, you shoot a decent 700, which was something back then. You'd have a little paragraph written about you in the paper. And now it's a little bit different, social media and everything else. But I just remembered that, if I worked hard and made, practice and learned about the sport, that I could reach that level sometime. And turned out I did.
Yeah. Was there anything organized to kind of, help you keep those competitive juices flowing, either on the junior level as far as tournaments, high school, college, anything like that in your bowling career?
Not in high school. In junior high, we had a bowling class, and that lasted about a year. And in high school, not so much until I got out. In fact, the Sherbarths don't remember this too much, but I remember the last year before I turned to adult leagues, I bowled for Highland Lanes in a traveling league, and we bowled all over. And that's where I actually met Bob Greenfield and Gary Darashevsky, because we traveled. And as a 16-year-old, that was a big deal on Saturdays. Oh, we got to bowl here, we got to bowl there. So the teams you were on, they were juiced. And I mean, you see it on today with the colleges. Imagine that back then, guys were, and we were high-fiving back then. I don't know if I was doing it as hard, but yeah, I remember that had an impact on me about, oh, geez, I get to travel and do this, and this is neat. And, who would have thought, 7 years later, I'm out there with Lenny Borsch looking at an atlas, wondering where the center is some 1,500 miles away.
Yeah. What told you at that point that, you've got to have some, some confidence, some spark, some, willingness to get out there with the belief that you can beat anybody at any time. So when you went out on tour, what kind of told you that you were at the level that you needed to be at to compete and to win?
I always felt it, but reality set in, because when I got out there and I saw how good those guys were, and at that time, urethane had just came out, the angle, and it was phenomenal as far as what I saw those guys do. Because I was, I'm guessing probably around 26 when I went out, and I'm watching guys like Roth and Holman and Mike Albee and even some of the older guys like Dave Davis and Dave Sutar, and these guys were still competing, making finals. I always felt I had the desire and the will to succeed. I just didn't have the tools, and everything I learned, it was self-taught to me. I didn't have a coach back then, so I learned on the fly. Unfortunately, it cost me thousands of dollars back then, but the bottom line is, what I did on my own. As I got a little bit older, then I started to meet people a little bit more, and I started to learn a little bit more, and it got easier. Then the money ran out, and I thought, well, geez, do I go hustle up sponsors? I still wanted to do it. I had an opportunity at that time. I got married, and my wife's uncle had a bar for sale, and I figured, okay, fine, being a big sports guy, figured I'd run that and then maybe go all back out there. But the Lord has different ways of throwing you curves, and it didn't pan out. But I maintained being amateur, and I competed because back in the day, between Terry Coolibert running all the WSBTs, Gloria Bear running all the Wisconsin State match, there was plenty to bowl. I mean, you had to pencil in what days were finals, what days were qualifying for every tournament. And I honed my skills that way. And then, the 1993 was the Brunswick Team Challenges, and that's when it took on a whole new ball game then.
Yeah. You tell a great story about, forming that team, that when that was going to compete in the Brunswick World Team Challenges. Take us back. Tell us how that all came to be.
All right. You got a minute?
I've got a few.
I was bowling with Lenny Borsch at the time, and we were bowling with friends of ours, Rick Birdsall, his brother-in-law, Jeff Rampart, Jeff Nimke, and I believe it was 92 or 93, the ABC at that time came out with this idea about running a team tournament, which was sponsored by Brunswick. And it was geared for, locals, guys that bowl league together, to come and enter. I didn't want that. I mean, I wanted, to bowl some decent bowlers. So I talked with Lenny and I says, hey, what if we get so and so and so and so? And it was, yeah, let's give it a shot. I don't know if Lenny took me serious or not, but the next day I contacted Dale Traber. He was the first guy I talked to. And I told him, because the other two guys we picked out were Darashevsky and Steve Brinkman. So I go up to Dale and I go, Dale, I says, yeah, we want to get this team to bowl, the first one, the Brunswick World Team Challenge. Yeah, he goes, I heard about that. And everybody was bowling with different people. Everybody had their own teams. So, after some coursing, he finally agreed. He goes, okay, I'll try it. We'll see, a couple tournaments to see how we do. So I didn't wait because I didn't want Dale talking because we were seeing each other during tournaments. Yep. So I didn't want, Brinkman or Darashevsky to go up to Traber and go, or Dale going up to them and saying, hey, well, yeah, well, we're going to be bowling together. And so nobody knew. So like the next day or two, I went to Gary. So I told Gary, I says, yeah, Gary, we're going to perform this at me, Lenny, Dale, Steve. He goes, they all say yes. I go, yeah, everybody's in. He goes, except for you. He goes, well, yeah, count me in. So then, and by the time I got to Steve was a no-brainer. I just said, Steve, this is who we're bowling with. Steve goes, count me in. So that's how it was formed. Now, none of them knew that they didn't agree to it prior to me talking to them. So in other words, I lied to all of them. I just said, okay, yeah. Everybody else said they're bowling. And that's how, in the very first tournament, we took second.
Wow. So
Dale comes up to me and goes, yeah, I'll give this a year. Well, the following year we won. And then years later, we won at the Nationals in 2000 in Albuquerque. And then it culminated with the win and the team all events in 2009 when we were all in our 50s, which I don't know if that's a record if a team that old has ever won. But yeah, that was, to this day, I look back at that. Those guys tease me about it, but hey, look what happened. 20 national titles later, 4 USBC Hall of Famers. Something must have been done right. I mean, I believe these guys would have got in anyways without the World Team Challenges. That's how good they were. But yeah, it was 26 years, 25 years we've been bowling together, and that's got to say something.
Yeah, absolutely. Brinkman said, of course, you were the leader, the leadoff man. And that was, something that was kind of your signature. I mean, he said you led off, you were the team leader, you wore your emotions on your sleeve and got everybody fired up. Is that something that came naturally to you, or did that develop over time?
I think that comes naturally to me, just wanting to root. I mean, I just been like that. I get engrossed with what I'm doing, especially when it comes to sports. And I've always been one, well, like for lack of a better term, what Steve said, I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I get down. I don't try to get too down for fear that it'll affect the other 4 guys. But when I'm up, well, I don't want to see anybody else doom and gloom. And, and those guys, believe me, sometimes I'm just a glorified cheerleader. Those guys, honest, they let me be who I am, which is a credit to my teammates because, sometimes they don't want to hear all that rah-rah stuff. I mean, they're focused and stuff, with what they want to do, especially if they're not bowling well. But they let me for years do that. But when it's right. It's right. It's like, it's just exciting. I mean, and everybody, getting Dale to show emotion, Lenny's pretty laid back. He's showing emotion. Gary, the same way. These guys weren't like me, and I was trying to elevate them a little bit. And for whatever it was worth, just a little bit was more than I'd ever seen them, get excited before. So to me, that made me feel good, but make no mistake about it. Those guys, they knew sometimes I could have been a little irritating doing it, and they just let me go with it. So Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and it seems like you have that certain mix of personalities, and it all kind of worked out. I mean, did you ever reach a time where, yeah, you said they let you be you, but did you ever worry that, oh my gosh, this is going to clash instead of mix, since you've got some guys who are more I don't know, straight shooters?
Andrew, I never thought about that. The only thing because we went out to dinner prior to us and getting a sponsorship from Jeff Lynn, which was a godsend. We went out to dinner before we started our run. And we had two rules. Number one is, and everybody was an accomplished bowler. Everybody had won tournaments, individual, team, double, singles, all events, state, local level. The number one rule was we leave our egos at the door. Nobody's better than anybody else on his team. And the second one was we split everything from brackets to singles to doubles, a team. It put an emphasis on teamwork. So if one person wasn't bowling as well, he'd be rooting for the other person. Not for the monetary value, but psychologically, it's, if everybody's bowling good, that's momentum, and everybody's thinking like that, and that's when good things happen, when everybody's in a positive mood and nobody's worried about somebody else getting a bigger slice of the pie or whatever. And as far as the egos go, that was automatic. Nobody, not at one time did anybody think he was better than anybody else on a team or the team itself, and that to me it would add it to the chemistry. And I think that's what you're alluding to right now is the chemistry. Even though we're five different personalities, maybe off the lanes, it was like that, but on the lanes, we were tight. It was cohesive. It was unbelievable how we thought, how we reacted, how we communicated with each other. I have still yet to see that. And I tell younger people that too. You don't need necessarily the five best bowlers, but if you have good chemistry and can communicate without anybody taking it criticism at heart, that's when you start getting decent teams and winning.
Yeah. As you bowl more and more, you get to know more and more people, both locally and in other places. I asked Greeny about, bowling with you, bowling against you. He called you the consummate team player, high energy guy, great communicator on the lanes, which is always important in team play, fun guy to bowl with. He also mentioned that he's won several tournaments with you, the Doysters team, back-to-back years, for instance. He says his teams have beaten yours and vice versa, and I'm thinking he meant always a great competitor. So tell me about when you end up bowling with a guy like Greeny and then later bowling against a guy like Greeny. What's your feeling inside when that kind of happens?
Well, I don't look at who I'm bowling, Pfaff. I look at trying to execute making good shots. I mean, my competitor is 60 feet down the lane. If I'm bowling good and I get beat, I got beat by somebody who made better shots than I did. And hats off to it. And Green should talk. He's a consummate team player too. I've always enjoyed bowling team events with Greeny because now I got somebody that's like me. And Greeny's high energy too. Let me tell you, we like when we bowl together, we feed off each other. So yeah, we've won a few tournaments together. And I've always enjoyed bowling with Greeny, but as far as looking at who I bowl against, whether they be a friend or a foe, sometimes if I have an Achilles heel, it's bowling somebody that I know that's a good friend of mine, where I just don't, I should be at a 10 level of concentration and wanting to win, where with somebody I know and care for, it's like, okay, it's about an 8. I still want to win, but I don't have that like, ooh, I just want to, kill them. I just don't have that.
Yeah. Back to, the Linds.
Unfortunately, now in my career,
yeah,
I got more friends. So now when I bowl them, it's like, oh, it's okay. Oh, a nice bowl, and they can kick my butt, and I'm like, oh, I'm okay with it. Where back in the day, I'd stew all the way driving home.
Yeah. Back to the Linds team. I mean, you don't form a team like that without having high expectations. I'm sure you go into these tournaments expecting to win. So when it starts happening, what does that feel like for you guys? Let's take the Brunswick World Team Challenges, for example.
Well, there was one thing we didn't lack, and that was swag. I know that's a term used now. Our team had it. We just knew going in that everybody else had to beat us. Now we're realists. We knew we weren't going to win every tournament, bowl good in every tournament. But the bottom line is we went in there thinking we were going to win every tournament, because that's the mentality you have to have. And if that's swag, if that's confidence, if then yeah, you got to have it. Again, it just comes from chemistry and communication. I mean, if we were struggling, we always worked it out that, okay, if one or two guys got it, the other three guys grind out, get enough. That way we make whatever pins they gave us bowling good, we can keep, rather than getting upset and not grinding out 190s and then all of a sudden shooting 160s and take ourselves out of a cut. So everybody knew that, okay, if I don't have it, you know what? I'm good enough to grind out, because the other three guys or four guys have a good look and they'll get the pins back until that individual finds it. So it's handing it off. It's like passing a baton. Okay, here, it's your turn to, you grind, and don't worry, I got you this time. I remember people ask me, I've been fortunate to win 4 Eagles. They asked me which one meant the most to me. And they all mean, like, winning one is great. All 4 of them, I'm very thankful, very blessed to have won. But the one that sticks out the most was when we won in 2009. We're bowling and I can see my teammates. They're just smashing them. All 4 of them are just bowling phenomenal. I come back with, a couple 190 games, and I'm just sweating, and I'm just upset because I can't strike. And my teammates, all 4 of them, were just like so wired. It wasn't even funny. We ended up shooting 34-50 that year to win. But I remember Lenny Borsch putting his arm around me and just saying the simple words, "Relax, we got this." My shoulders went down. I ended up shooting 250 the last game for a 630. And we ended up shooting 3,400. That means my teammates shot 400 over. But if Lenny doesn't say that to me, or if I don't manage to at least have enough gumption, enough, guile to stick with it, who knows? We would have lost, because we ended up winning it, I think, by 18 pins. And I turned it on again. I bowled great for the minor events, which helped catapult us for winning the all events. But that one stuck out to me the most. And again, that's communication, and that's why Lenny's a dear friend of mine. He knew my personality and said, okay, I need to step in here and say something. He did, and it worked.
Was that the one where you literally are like 10 lanes down from a team that ended up in second?
Yes. And there were a couple of PBA regional guys. Dale knew them and Lenny knew them. I had heard of them. We ended up collecting brackets or whatever. We ended up having a couple beers with them afterwards. And, every shot in the 10th, you could hear them scream, and then all of a sudden we would. It was intense. That was, 2009. And you got to think, we're all in our 50s then. So, it's like, geez, look at these old guys. They're hanging in there.
I was thinking you were just getting into the prime of your life, right? No. When you're having beers with these guys, you still really don't know, right? Because there's some time left in the tournament. But then you know, the shifts all end, the tournament ends, you're still on top. They call it unofficial, they call it official, whatever. What does that feel like to know that you've got two Eagles coming your way?
Oh, Andrew, I don't know. I can't describe it. Just knowing that your objective is to go to the Nationals and always leave on the leaderboard. Mm-hmm. The rest is out of your hands, because no matter how good you bowl, eventually somebody could bowl better. And in that tournament, because of the length, you never know. We could have got knocked off the next day, or we could have got knocked off the last squad. You just don't know. But going in a leaderboard, you feel confident. When it happens and you win, it just shocks you. It's just like, wow, I won. And then you're doing I'm being Greek, but I'll do a mixed jig dance or whatever, by myself. But I'll tell you what, it's unbelievable. And then when you see the Eagles, and at that time we invited Jeff Lynn to our Milwaukee Hall of Fame banquet, and he presented us with the trophies there. So we gave Jeff Lynn the team trophy, and it was just a special evening, especially with him being there. So yeah, I'd like to experience again, but being 64, I don't know. There's not too much left in the tank.
I want to tell, a little story that Brinkman told me that really kind of stuck with me. He said that you guys were bowling in the team challenge and finals in Reno. He said his daughter Stephanie was there, and she was only 3 years old, but took a liking to you for some reason. He said that the team lost in the stepladder, and you were all very upset, especially you, as you were angrily hauling your bowling balls off the settee area. He said his daughter walked up to you and put her arms up. He said you dropped your bowling bags, picked her up, and that Steve believes that you even shed a tear or two hugging her, as we all realize that there is more to life than bowling. What do you remember feeling in that moment?
Just that, exactly what you just said. There's more to life than bowling. When I turned and I saw Stephanie's face, that cute little face on that kid, I melted. It was like, who cares? We just lost in the step finals, but I mean, it didn't bother me. I just looked at her, and I was like, my God, here's somebody that has no clue what just happened, but she wants, to give me a hug or wants me to hold her. And I'll tell you what, that moment right there was, just it made my heart ache. I mean, it was nice. It was so cool. To this day, I still talk to Stephanie. I mean, and she remembers it. Yeah, what a darling she was. What a beauty.
Yeah. When you have a team that is together in some form or fashion with either five guys or companion teams for that long, do you feel like you become a family?
When we're bowling tournaments, yeah, because we would go out to dinner. I mean, there was a run there where we were making money in brackets at the team challenge, where we'd go out for steak dinners and order bottles of wine and live the high life, knowing that when the tournament was over, everybody had their own lives. And outside, because Lenny stood up for my wedding, I stood up for his. We stayed close, and we still are, and I'm still close with the other guys. But everybody had their own lives, and we didn't intrude on that. But when we bowled, yeah, we were a family, and we ate and drank and hung around, kept to ourselves when we were out there, and enjoyed each other's companies, going to movies or whatever we were doing. So yeah, it was nice. You could say, yeah, it was a family affair.
Yeah. Do you still bowl with those guys at all?
You know what? The COVID last year, we didn't. Gary's had some issues with neuropathy, and Dale couldn't bowl with a mask on. He has trouble breathing. Ryan's wrist we ended up bowling with a couple other guys last year, and it wasn't the same. I mean, and actually, Hank was one of them, and I've known Hank and bowled with Hank, but it was a different atmosphere, different type of team chemistry. But, we know our days have come and gone, and now it's not, could lightning in a bottle strike and could we win again? Who knows? I don't know what the future holds. For us to do it, being realistically, having an idea, it'd be tough. Not that we wouldn't be trying. I mean, all of us would be giving 110%. But Andrew, Father Time's undefeated. And where you're younger and you're able to make the at the line adjustments when you feel your body's off, your tempo's off. We can't do that anymore. Except for maybe Borsch. Lenny still has it. But the rest of us, I was just talking to your buddy Dale Traber yesterday in the league, and we were talking about being in line for the glue factory. He goes, in line, Gus. He goes, I'm already in the building.
I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, you did pretty well in the Super Senior not too long ago.
Yeah, you know what? Things came together that day, and I did very well. Had a good cross, of course. Bowling with Lenny, and yeah, it was nice. I think that I caught fire a little bit, and it panned out. I made some good shots, and didn't think 730 would hold up for the win, but it did, and I was happy. I mean, it was one of the things I didn't have on my resume, and I do now. Yeah. So I was real happy that day.
That was 2018. Does a win in that mean as much as the wins in the years gone by? Does it mean more?
You know what, Andrew? Anytime you win, especially against a competition across the country, it's just a great feeling, because a lot of the good bowlers, especially the guys that you grew up with, that you competed with, as a PBA member or as an amateur in the team challenges or the Mega Buck tournaments, they're all special. I mean, and they're tough to win. Face it, and today's environment with the way the balls are, and some of the players nowadays. I mean, I look at some of the names that I just recently got done bowling in the over 60 USBC Super Senior. And I'm Walter's still out there, and Monticelli ended up winning it. I mean, Tom Baker's still out there competing, and once 60, you're going to see Pete Weber out there. You're going to see Lenny out there. You're going to see Bob Learn out there. You're going to see a lot of those bowlers that I started out with still competing, still able to win out there at over 60. So it never gets easier. I mean, that's why you got to take those wins as they come.
Yeah, take them as you can get them. Obviously you mentioned being inducted in the USBC Hall of Fame. Like I said at the start, you've been inducted to the Milwaukee Association Hall of Fame, the Wisconsin Hall of Fame. What has each of those accomplishments meant to you?
Well, they're all prestigious in their own right. I mean, the first one was the Milwaukee one, which gave me pride because the peers in the city of Milwaukee voted me in. Like I said, the guys I grew up watching voted for me. I believe at that time they had just changed the rule, the age requirement to get into the hall to 40 or 45, and I was the youngest one at that time ever to be inducted. So that meant a lot to me. And then the state, a few years later, was phenomenal, because now you're thinking, oh, people from Eau Claire and Green Bay and Madison and Kenosha, Racine, Sheboygan, those people recognize you, which, elevated, my appreciation more for the sport and for the people I competed against. And then it culminated in the USBC Hall of Fame, which is the national one. where pros and top-notch amateurs with the history of the USBC, it's the trifecta, Andrew. And I mean, all the hard work, all the, the hair pulling and the cussing and throwing of my equipment, it's like all went away. 30, 40 years went away. It was like, so this is what it's about. So I'm very, very appreciative and blessed that, I'm in all three, and I'm hoping that somewhere down the road, I help somebody that maybe I may not even be around 20 years from now. They may say, hey, I remember what Gus Yannaras told me, and it helped me get to where I am. And so I take pride in that right now. And I'm able to do that, helping Chad out at the pro shop at Bowler's headquarters. And who knows, maybe somebody will listen.
At Bowler's headquarters, you are there along with Will Welch, who was on a previous episode. What's that?
Willie G.
Willie G. Willie G told me that you are truly one of his favorite people that he's been fortunate to meet through bowling. He said it's an absolute honor to be able to work beside you at Bowler's headquarters, have some of your insight. He says you are his spirit animal and life goals because of the Halls of Fame. He said there might be a handful of athletes in our sport with that honor. You're a guy he goes to when he needs someone to give him raw advice, whether he's going to like to hear it or not. You're one of his favorite competitors, not only to have on his team, but just to watch and observe. He says you never lack intensity, communication, and was a big motivation for him to step up to be the leadoff bowler for his Bowler's headquarters USBC team. What do you tell a guy like that about leading off? I mean, it's your thing, but let's be real here. It's not everybody's thing.
Well, Willie's he's definitely the man for that spot. He's being a great player that he is. He can instill what Will's good at too is being able to read the lanes, so that if he throws a good shot and the ball doesn't perform the way he thinks it might be on a lane, he can turn back to his teammates, a guy who's bowling second or third, and saying, hey, I think this is happening. I think maybe you should move. That's the part of communication. Unfortunately, sometimes being the leadoff guy is the guinea pig, because if the lanes transition and you throw a good shot and you happen to leave a split, the other four are aware of it because they're watching you. But you have to be honest with yourself. Even when you throw a bad, you got to tell them I didn't throw a good, or I threw a good, and this is what I see. So he can offer his advice to his teammates, and his teammates are smart enough to listen to him, because Will's got that in him. He's very good at reading the lanes and knowing what to do. Unfortunately, as a leadoff bowler, you may have to give up a frame or two a game because of that. But the way I look at it is, if he can do that and still maintain shooting 200, that enhances his teammates on making the adjustments and going from maybe possible 210 to a 230 game. Well, that's an extra 20 pins for the team. And that's the team concept. You have to think of that at going into team events. And then, I mean, look what happened to him this year at the ABC USBC tournament. Those guys bowled a phenomenal game the last game. He shot 1280. Come on, when the chips are down, you got to do that. Well, hey, that's tough to do. Well, that's a credit to all 5 of those guys for communicating, knowing what to do, having the gumption, and keeping their nerves in check and performing when they had to. Now, unfortunately, they end up getting beat, but you know what? Like I said, get on the leaderboard, and the rest is out of your hands.
Yeah,
that's what you can do. But yeah, Will's the guy to be on the leadoff position on that team. He's got experienced players behind him, but he's a voice that they can listen to.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that kind of stuff for you in the leadoff position? ends up, leaving people like Brinkman with, things to say like, hey, he was a great leader and still is a great bowler, and he'd be happy to shoe up with you anytime.
Yeah, see, with Stevie, because Stevie threw a different type of shot than the four of us. We played the lanes pretty much the same, Gary and I and Lenny and Dale, where Stevie was inside of a little bit because he had more hand, which I think benefited Stevie down the road. But it was easier for me to tell the other three guys. But I still, if I saw something change in the lanes, I still told those guys, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And if Stevie's got to adapt his style of game and the way he throws the ball. So in other words, if I'm making an adjustment, or I think he should make an adjustment, he may make twice as much of a move as the rest of us because of his hand and the revolutions he puts on the ball and the way, he comes around and, and creates that room for himself.
Yeah. We mentioned earlier that Hank was, one of the ones who challenged you to be on the show. Another one was Tom Cole. So I've got to know, were you ever on the bowling game?
No, but my brother was. In fact, brother Jim won a car on that show.
Really?
He was one of the first guys to shoot, what it was, a 6 in a row. And I forgot what Pontiac dealer offered. It was a Pontiac Aster. But I've known Tom throughout the years, and even though I was never on the bowling game, I mean, I've seen him at local charity events and at some tournaments here and there, Larry Heisel tournament, and back in the day. Tom's always been a good friend, and I haven't seen him for a while, but yeah, he was instrumental. A lot of people remember that bowling game.
Yeah.
I just feel sad because we don't have any production of any kind of TV bowling in this state. And, how long did Bowling with the Champs run? 40 years?
Long time.
There's not an interest for it. I wish somebody would, pick up the ball and run with it and create something, because I think it'd be worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have a senior division.
Right. Yeah. In another 5 years, like 50 plus, I'll be in that. Yeah.
There you go.
Tell me about the future. What it looks like for you as far as, are you going to keep competing in certain events and leagues? Where do you go from here as far as the competitive side of the game?
The competitive side, I'll probably feed with just the league, and I'll still bowl a few tournaments here and there, Andrew. But I've been blessed this year with being a grandfather for the first time. And I love that kid. I want to spend more time with him. In fact, it's the first time I haven't bowled Fridays at Blue Mound for years, only because I want to spend some more time. And fortunately, my son gives me him, for the weekend. So, we take him in and we keep him for a couple days, and it's just a joy to be. I'm wiped out after it because now he's in that mode where he's walking, and now I got to chase after him. So, Gramps can't handle too much exercise. I keep my competitive juices flowing in the league, and I'll bowl the city tournament because being a Hall of Famer for the city, I at least want to go there and support that. And the state tournament, same. Support the state tournament, knowing that if the stars and the moon align right, who knows? But I'm more relaxed. It's more fun. I was just talking to Dale yesterday again about when our dates was for state seniors, because I really enjoy bowling with the guys our age now, and it's competitive, yet it's fun and it's relaxed. And I get to bowl with Jim Knobloch and Jeff Nimke. I mean, we got a great team. And Rickles has his team, and those guys are pretty good too. I mean, and there's a lot of good senior teams. So the competitive edge is still there. But as far as getting out there and going online and finding out, where's the next tournament? No, those days are over. And I'm happy with that. I mean, there's not too too many places I can go right now where I could, get that feeling back where I've had it years ago, and it's okay with me right now. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Let's say, and this is a question that I asked Jerry Mars when he came on, not knowing the Chicago area as well as I do Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is my hometown. You were talking about Bolero in your early days, and you were talking about Petrovs. Bolero, of course, is still around. Blue Mound is still around. Petrovs is not. If you could go back and bring back one of those centers in the Milwaukee area that isn't around anymore, which one would it be and why?
It would be Petrov's, because that's where my first love was. I mean, bowled junior league there, went there and bowled for fun on dates. I went there to bowl with my buddies. I remember George Sinitis, who was the manager at the time, wouldn't allow minors in the bar, but we'd go there Saturday for league, and I'm sure every kid did this. 9 o'clock, get done at 11:30, watch the tour at noon till 1:30, go back out and bowl until they kicked you off the lanes for couples leagues or whatever. That was me and my brothers for years. And I remember having my solo and my Cheetos watching the tour. And I remember my parents taking me up to Bolero when the Miller was in town, with names like Johnny Gunther and Dave Davis, and Johnny Petraglia was young. I remember all those guys. Carmen Salvino when he was young. I remember those names. I remember seeing those guys. And yeah, I would bring back Petrov's on Burleigh, because I have a lot of fond memories there.
Yeah.
It was the first bowling center, I believe, that was built on stilts, because the bowling lanes were upstairs and the parking was underneath, and the setup was pretty cool. But now, I mean, carrying up 3-ball rollers, 2 flights of stairs, no good.
Not so much. Yeah. Will happens to be, maybe he still is, maybe he was watching. He said, Gus has given me a high five so hard it loosened up my wristwatch.
Oh, at least I didn't break any fingers.
Or hit him in the face like Dale. You know this well from watching the show that we do something called Off the Sheet at the end, where we ask you to challenge somebody else who's passionate about the sport and has a unique story to tell. So, Gus Yannaras, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fev?
All right, I'm going to mention a couple guys, Andrew. I'm going to go with Lenny Borsch, because I'm sure he has a great insight about competing at his age and winning at his age, and the stories he's probably got. Yeah, he would be my first. Probably my second would be my boss, Chad Kloss. Getting into the business, still being competitive, now knowing the business side of bowling. Yeah, Chad Kloss, Lenny Borsch, and I'm going to throw Jeff Rickles in there too. Okay. Being the 11th frame, he's, like I said, he's got his finger on the pulse of bowling in this state and across the country. He'd be a great guest.
Okay.
So you get to touch an avenue between the competitor, the business, and the marketing and journalistic side. Yeah. So that's your choice. I hope one of those three are listening and they come and join you, Andrew.
Yeah, Jeff has actually been on a show before, but that's not to say that he wouldn't come back on again if the circumstances are right. So that could happen. As far as Chad and Lenny have not been on. So please, if if you're watching and are interested in stepping up to Gus's challenge, let me know. You can DM me on Facebook.
And what? I might throw it. Okay, I'm going to exchange somebody for Jeff Rickles.
Please.
How about John Megna?
There you go.
Johnny's been very instrumental in my career. I mean, anything I've won, he's drilled. Fortunately for me, I had him as my ball driller. And I'm sure he's got a few stories from back in the day with a lot of people coming in there, myself included, that used to drive him up the wall. But there you go. Yeah, but nominate John Megna. There you go. See, Jeff Rickles on already. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we would love to have John on too. Again, email me bowlingwiththepfeff@yahoo.com. We will definitely make that happen because I'm sure some great stories will come out of all those guys. We have our next live stream coming up on October 6th at 6 p.m. Central. And it's kind of interesting that it worked out this way because it's a gentleman that you mentioned in your Hall of Fame speech, and that is Del Warren, who is going to come on. Tell me what you could tell people about Del, to kind of whet their appetite before he makes his appearance.
Del was a great boss. I mean, he was the president of track when I worked there. Very, very knowledgeable, especially coaching. There's no surprise he's down there coaching as a career because I still use some of the tips he taught me. But yeah, Del's a very good, he's a student of the game. And he's always learning, and he's coached some of the best in the world. There's a reason why they go to him. I mean, at one point, you have to understand, our sales force consisted of myself, Chuck Gardner, Mark Baker, Bill Montz, some of the best coaches in the world, and they are all under his tutelage. So Del's got to be doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking forward to having him on the show. Gus, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll tell you, anybody who is willing to name their son Andrew is a winner in my book. But you've proved it in many more ways than that. So I really appreciate you coming on and telling your story.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure. And I hope to see you down the road sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I, like I said, Milwaukee's my hometown. I do get down there sometimes, but yeah, we'll have to figure that out at some point. Until then, be just and fear not. We hope to see everyone next week.
All right.